With them finished with the meal, they slowly began getting out of their chairs. Compared to when they first came into the room, everyone had a satisfied look on their face. It only highlighted how they enjoyed the food and the overall atmosphere of the private room. James was glad that they had the chance to enjoy hanging out in the private area and share a meal. Though they were getting closer, after having the meal, James started to think of their two groups as being just one. Though they would still retain their identities with who was part of which group during the request, it would be more vital for them to act as a single unit. The closer they got to one another, the easier it would be to communicate quickly when dealing with hostiles and potential threats. The guild workers opened the door to the room, bowing to them as they walked out. James smiled at the guild worker with feathers in her hair. "Thank you for the wonderful experience. The food was beyond what I could imagine." To hear such praise is the reason why we, at the guild, work so hard. The guild worker smiled at James. "I wish you good fortune on your request and look forward to the return of your group to try more of our food." Nodding his head, James followed after the others, with Maya walking next to him. "Now, we need to head out and try to figure out what's happening," Maya sighed. Compared to when they first entered the current section of the dining level, there were more adventurers that were casually enjoying the meals at the various tables. James casually looked at the food, curious about what the other items on the menu would produce. While checking his surroundings, James said, "It's definitely not going to be easy for us to figure this out." He looked at Maya, frowning. "The problem is not knowing where we need to start and the scale of the request. We're basically tasked to fix what's happening in the world when it comes to the monsters." Maya nodded grimly. Despite the cheerful glow that they felt while eating the food, it was no longer possible for them to push off the inevitability of the request. Even worse was how if they were to fail, then Forest City and other heavily populated areas would eventually fall due to the strange behavior of the monsters. As they entered the hallway, passing by the windows where adventurers could still be seen getting food from the numerous stalls, the whole group was considerably different compared to earlier. There was no longer the pleasant mannerism. Without a word, they reached the elevator. Celine pressed the button to summon one of the elevators. Now that they were in the mindset of the mission, James felt as though the gear that they were carrying felt slightly heavier. The new helmet that he wore had a more constrained sensation, as though it was blocking his vision. As the elevator doors opened and they all entered, James tried to shake off the feeling of nervousness that was beginning to pile up inside his mind. When the doors closed and the button for the lobby was pressed, Mim coughed into his hand to gain the attention of everyone. "I know that all of you are beginning to feel the pressure that this request is going to bring on us. But before we leave the guild and start this journey, I just want to say that regardless of what happens, we're in this together," Mim said. "This isn't going to be an easy task, but after being around all of you, I can sense that our two groups are now stronger compared if we were separately working on this." As Mim spoke encouraging words to them, James was surprised that his feelings of anxiousness were beginning to fade away. "I guess that's what a leader of a group of experienced adventurers can accomplish," James thought to himself. With just a few words, the heavy atmosphere that was hovering over them had already begun to disperse. Slowly, there was a feeling of confidence that was felt in the air.